Are you wondering how the housing market is doing in Snohomish? As a homeowner here, you might be thinking about selling sometime soon, and no matter what headlines or data you're reading, it always comes down to location. Your zip code, even your specific neighborhood, can tell a very different story. So let's unpack what is happening across Snohomish as a whole and then take an even closer look at how 98296 and 98290 are each performing right now. Let's start with a quick overview of Snohomish as a whole before zooming into each zip code. The median home price in May landed collectively just over 1,009,000, which is slightly higher than this time last year. Inventory is also up with 144 homes on the market compared to just 100 a year ago. That's a noticeable shift and it's giving buyers more options. Pending sales did dip down a bit, down from 78 last May to 70 this year, which tells us that while the demand is still there, buyers are being more intentional and taking their time. And here is a statistic I'm always watching: months of supply, the amount of inventory we have. We're now at 2.8 months, which is the highest it's been in almost a decade. It's not a buyer's market, but it's definitely not what we saw during the peak years either. We're in a kind of a different market right now, one that is showing more balance than we've seen in quite a while between sellers and buyers. Now let's take a closer look at 98296, which does tend to carry a higher price point. The median home price in May here came in at just a little over actually $1,125,000. That's down $27,500 from last year, but still well above where we were just a few years ago. This is one of those areas where pricing tends to hold steady even when buyer activity does slow. New listings came in at 59, which is pretty on par from last year, with last year's at 62. But what is standing out is that the pending sales dropped down to 25 compared to 31 last May. That is a noticeable shift and could signal that buyers are being a little bit more selective. Another stat I always look at is how many showings it takes to get a home under contract. And in 98296, it dropped to just 5 showings per pending sale compared to 11 last year. Keep in mind, this does not include activity at any open houses. That's kind of an untracked metric. That also indicates that buyers who are out there are serious. They're not browsing, they're ready, but only for the right home. Okay, here is a little side note. I'm constantly viewing properties, and I went through a listing just recently, which is still on the market. It's a super great layout, great lot in a high demand location. But the moment my client and I stepped in, actually more than just one, a couple of these homes, it was a little overwhelming with dated finishes, tons of personal photos, and not a big effort to make that particular home shine. I have to say that the photos online looked way better than it did in person. And I get it, life gets busy, but this is exactly why prep matters. Buyers right now aren't just seeing the home, they feel it, and they also feel that to-do list. If you are selling in a high demand area like this, actually, no matter where you live and where you are selling, you deserve somebody who will give you your home the full attention it needs, not just treat it like just another listing. So be sure to reach out. I could go on about this, but I think that's more for another video. So let's get back on track. And finally, back to statistics. We saw the months of supply, like I said, climb to 2.8 months. That's up from 2.5 months of inventory from last year. And again, another high level since 2011 in this zip code. So it definitely is giving buyers a bit more time and leverage than what we've seen in recent years. Now shifting over to 98290, the numbers here are telling a different story than 98296. The median home price in May was about $850,000, which is up from about $812,000 this time last year. So while prices dipped in 98296, they actually rose here. though we will need to see if that trend is going to hold true as more inventory becomes available. And that's true for all of Snohomish. And then there's definitely more inventory. We had 85 new listings in May, up from 63 last year, which is the most amount of new listings we've seen in 98290 since the year 2007. This is a pretty big shift and most likely a result of sellers taking advantage of the late spring and early summer momentum, and also homeowners really needing to take action in moves that they have been putting off for a while because of the uncertainty of the housing market. At the same time, pending sales came in at 45, which is fairly steady year over year. So even with more listings, demand didn't rise at the same pace. Months of supply jumped to almost 3 months, which again is the highest in either of the Snohomish zip codes. That also tells us that buyers here have more choices and sellers may be competing a bit more than what they realize. And just like 98296 is also taking about 5 showings per pending sale, which suggests that buyers are not wasting time. When a home checks the boxes, they're moving, but the home has to show well and feel worth it. So what does all of this mean if you're a homeowner in Snohomish who's thinking about selling, whether it's soon or just sometime this year or even next? Well, we are seeing more inventory in both zip codes. That doesn't mean prices are falling. In fact, they're holding fairly steady, but it does mean that buyers have more choices. That shift alone changes the dynamic. So here's the bottom line. We're no longer in a market where every home sells quickly by default. The homes that are selling right now are the ones that are priced right, prepared with intention, and presented to stand out. And that is exactly where I come in. If you're considering selling and want to know how to stand out in today's market, no matter what part of Snohomish you are in, I am very passionate about helping my neighbors make confident moves. Let's connect and craft a tailored plan that works for you, no matter where your journey takes you. Every home and every situation is a little different, and that's why having the right plan makes all the difference. Reach out anytime. I'd love to hear your story and support your next move with care, clarity, and expert guidance. Until next time, I'm Michelle Graham, and I'll see you in the next video.